brain seems to have these complex holding patterns that are very difficult to let go of, even just to experience attention itself, or direct your attention to attention itself, or awareness. So it seems as though there's kind of this projection, of fantasy-type projection into the future, or delusional escape to the past, or attempt to escape the now, either through projecting into the future or into the past. And also it's culminated with this idea of things and time and this spatial format of space and time in relation to oneself. So there's, this wide spectrum of thought that is all brain generated, that goes into the future and into the past, and then that kind of solidifies in a thought pattern, in this holding pattern that kind of formulates the whole idea of the self and all the other complexities that branch off from this, from these key parameters of the way that the brain processes information and then decodes it into this idea of the self in relation to everything else. So it fragments using labeling, distinguishing thoughts that kind of fragment and sectionalize and compartmentalize different aspects of its reality, which actually solidifies its own idea of the self in correlation with the brain and its body and its mechanism of function. So as you try to attempt to direct attention back on itself, these holding patterns seem to sway and push attention away from itself. So I don't think it's so much, at least from what I've experienced, it's not so much that illusion tries to grab attention. It's more that attention from long conditioned state of these holding patterns and complex thought processes that it has developed over time that has kind of structured and built this idea of the self, drag attention with it to wherever is going to bring that sense of self back when it's actually kind of recollecting or recalling attention just being on itself. So you shut down that future past dichotomy, I guess, and then you're left with the smaller narratives and labels of the thought process that are narrating what attention is doing as it's trying to focus on its own attention. As attention tries to be one with attention and pay attention to what is paying attention. So it's kind of narrating that process. And it's very difficult, and even as I say those words, it's very difficult. I'm actually narrating the process of there not being a process, or one that's processing, and something that's there to be processed. That narration also is part of this holding pattern or thought pattern that isolates or maintains this idea of the self, even in those very directed and intentional efforts to stop narrating so that attention can focus on attention. So it's very easy, it's effortless, but it requires a lot of effort to not make it this difficult task that requires a lot of effort. It's just a matter of letting go of that, but that's very difficult to do, and I could only get to that point for a very short period of time. And even just saying that short period of time, that whole thought process right there is something that maintains that idea of a self and a time and the spatial construct that it is generated around itself, and that's all brain. So you're trying to distinguish between the brain and attention, and that's a pretty difficult thing to do.